Good morning. I'm Katie. I'm the general manager at ADAC, and we are so excited to welcome you to day one of the Design ADAC, our spring market. Before we turn things over to our lovely panel today, I want to go through a couple of important housekeeping items. For those of you who come every market, I apologize. You're going to hear this a lot this market. So this is your event guide. Grab a copy of that so that you know all of the events that are going on this week. If you haven't registered for something, you'll want to go ahead and get registered because some of our events are already sold out. But I also want to remind everyone that this is the week that we celebrate our Southeast Designers and Architect of the Year finalists and award winners on Thursday night. So this week on Wednesday, we have a finalist celebration that anyone who would like to attend can come and meet all of our finalists for this year's award. So check that out. There's also some fun pictures of the gala from last year in this event guide. This week, we like to have a ton of fun on social media, so please tag us. Our handle's at ADAC Atlanta, and this week we use the hashtag DesignADAC. All of our speakers, our media partners, our showrooms, all of their handles are here in this event guide, so very, very handy. Make sure you tag everyone. If you tag ADAC, we'll share it, and we love to see how much fun everybody's having this week on social media here at ADAC and show the whole world. I want to thank our media partner today. That's VERANDA. They have copies of the magazine, so be sure to pick that up. Today's panel, we will go upstairs to Suite 323, Colo Collection, for a reception and a book signing with Peter. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Executive Editor Ellen McGauley with VERANDA.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you so much to your entire team. We are always so honored to be part of this community. As Katie said, I'm Ellen McGauley. I'm the executive editor of VERANDA, and driving in last night, I was looking at, nobody does spring like Atlanta. I mean, everything is so green, everything's blooming, and I thought, here I am coming in to talk about outdoor living and the power of nature and design. And so anyway, I hope everyone is in as much of the spirit as I am. And on that topic, I want to also extend a thank you to the Colo Collection and Sunbrella, who are our partners, and we're so excited to be immersed in all of that inspiration after this panel at the reception. So with that, I see a lot of familiar faces as well, and I know that many of you know that when we pick a topic for a VERANDA panel, it's something that reflects a deep virtue of VERANDA, something that we're trying to cover a lot, that it means a lot to us in terms of the relevant topics and in today's world of design. Fly on the wall in our home submissions meetings, you would hear things like, how does this home reflect its natural environment or relate to it? Is there a continuity between indoors and out? That sort of give and take of the flow of spaces. And so we sort of feel like when there's spaces to kind of extend out and you can really see where it is and it has a sense of belonging with the environment, however that manifests, that makes the home feel very complete. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. And as we were thinking about how best to do that, we couldn't have gone to the Mediterranean and plucked, better people to talk about indoor-outdoor living. A wonderful house in Los Angeles. There is, and I'll try to point it out when I see it, there is this outdoor living room that lives in my dreams. And so Peter Dunham was the interior designer on the project, and Patricia Benner was the landscape architect. And so these two know each other very well, and I think you'll kind of see that as we go along. And so I hope that when we leave here, we're all kind of we have sort of a renewed excitement about, we're not thinking about how hot it's going to be in the summer here. We're thinking about all the ways we can live outdoors. So as a way of introductions, I'm going to start with Peter, who many of us have followed and admired throughout the course of his career. He has a roster of celebrity clients and those in the entertainment business, including that project that's in our March-April issue. And he has been designing fabrics and wallpapers since 2003. He's in 16 showrooms worldwide, including his flagship showroom, Hollywood at Home. And I would say if you haven't been there, just when you leave here, when you leave the reception later, just fly on out to Hollywood because you have to go to this shop. It is, I'm not just saying that, it's just the best. It is just a wonderland. That's where you can find into his world. His book, The World of Peter Dunham, is just, isn't it on like the bestseller list? You know, it's the New York Times bestseller or something. Anyway, it will be right after we all go, and he's signing copies after this. It's a great book, so I encourage you all to get that. And but what I love most about Peter is his views on the world, travel, his inspiration, design, anything. And so welcome, Peter. I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh my God, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you call, I always run.
I worried you were getting scared of me at this point.
No, but don't forget, you can also go to my showroom in New York at 200.
That's right. And I'm going to tell you how I know our second guest, landscape architect Pat Brennan, that I hope it will illustrate the power of her passion, her voice for what she does. For another story in the March-April issue, we began learning about a project called the New California Classics. And this is a design project that grew out of the 2025 California wildfires. It was a group of 30 architects, designers, landscape architects, many of them were in the Design Leadership Network, who came together to create a guidebook for anyone wanting to rebuild and do it in honor and reflect the architectural heritage of Southern California. So in other words, replace what had been lost with something that has a sense of belonging there to its history. And it outlined, I think it was 7 architectural styles. So when you think about Southern California, you think like Spanish Revival and California Modern and Ranch, and something they call Cali Cod, Cape Cod perhaps, version of that. And so you might have had an architect among this 30 that's working on Spanish Revival, or a couple of architects working on California Ranch, and all 7 of them. And how would you design the outdoors in a way that has a sense of belonging, but also with fire resistance, drought tolerance, all of that? And so Pat did, basically for all of these homeowners that are going to rebuild, she has a landscape, and this is a project that's continually evolving, a landscape plan for each of these different styles, giving them ideas on materials and plants and rooms and that kind of thing. And that's how I came to really know Pat, and that was in the same issue as their project. So in March-April, in the March-April issue, we adapted plans. She found that their firm after working on her own landscape plan and growing up with her mother, who was a landscape architect, right? And in addition to appearing in Veranda, her work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, AD, and many more. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into how you approach the design of outdoor spaces, I want to get a sense of each of your internal compasses when it comes to outdoor living. So Peter, what's this defining quality of your interior spaces is livability, comfort, and beauty, but you do the same with your exterior spaces. They don't appear secondary and priority. Do you think this comes from your sort of very California environment, this outdoor living ethos and your clients, or are you somewhat bullish on the outdoors just innately anyway, and that they need to be elevated with the same level?
It's a long question, but I think for me, my experience of indoor and outdoor living is whenever I'm indoor, I want to go outdoors. Mm-hmm. I'm always attracted to the window. In fact, a lot of people sit in their houses close to the window, mm-hmm. where the light is and where the sense of freedom is. So we as kids always play outside, right? So anyway, it continues as an adult. And to me, when I'm in a house, I'm always looking to what's my way out? What can I do outdoors to give it the same feeling of comfort, let's say, as indoors, but outdoors? Where I'd rather be. So that's always kind of where the primary area is going to be outdoors that can give me the sense of kind of comfort and joy. So a lot to do is like, I need shade, right? I mean, I think you probably deal with it all the time, but I'm obviously very pale skinned, so for me, the shade's really important. You know, heat, for example, where you're going to bring heat. So, quite cold area. My feeling is like, where can I create areas that feel nestling, cuddling, that enclose you a little bit outdoors, so you feel a little bit safe, and where I can have a destination. I think that's kind of my first approach. It's not my first approach coming into a project,
right.
But it's like when I'm looking to really use and furnish it. And I come from a thing where like we're lucky if usually we buy, let's say a 2,000 square foot footprint on a piece of property, and there's probably another 10, 20, 30, 40,000 square feet of garden. So we have to make the use of it. We have to make the most of it and the experiences, particularly since they're, for most people, happy experiences. So.
Yeah. And so, Pat, with you, I guess my question to you to kind of get a sense of where you're coming from is, I think this will tell us a lot. Why did you decide to do all that work with the new California classics? Why did you decide? Why was that important to you?
Well, it was devastating to an entire community, and we felt a need to give back. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people that are going to have a hard time rebuilding because insurance companies did not cover their full losses. So they were going to be doing, a lot of people working without architects or designers. So we were trying to provide sort of a blueprint and I think it's else you wanted to build and something to inspire people. And I think it was really well received in a lot of the forums that we did around town. And things are slowly starting to come back.
Yeah, really important. But they have a building block, thanks to you all. Yeah, they have a building block, a place to start.
And we were hoping to, because some of the houses coming back are developer houses, and we were trying to influence the developers to do something with some kind of imagination that had some rooting in the community.
Yeah.
Oh my God, from your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, rooted in community, rooted in a sense of belonging. So I would then go back to Peter and say, I want to hear from both of you. You're starting a project. How do you approach the outdoor living part of the design? What are you looking for? What are you looking at? Peter, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm a certified nut job, right? So you have to understand that I get to a project and I start looking, and I think you probably do as well, right? You get there and you start feeling the project, the perimeter of the house, where the house is sited. There are two things that nobody's ever let me do. One is to do an entirely candlelit chandelier in a dining room. And the second is to move a house on a property. And I try quite often. And there are two projects that I went to, but the house was just so poorly sited. One was in Connecticut. It was on an 11-acre piece of property that was flat, long, amazing. And the house was like literally 12 feet from the road. I held it in. And this house, we're looking at this Fire Island property that's on the screen now, I did the same thing. It was on a double lot, and it was weird. So anyway, cut to the one in Connecticut, there was literally like 11 acres for this house to go on, okay? And I didn't any more like Tourette's. And, I was like, turned to the contractor and said, how much does it cost to move a house here? And he said, well, I did one last year. He said, it was about $250,000. I said, really? Oh my God, that's nothing. He said, we're going to do that. So I turned to go, you've got to move the house. He said, absolutely not. This is historic and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, my whole point is we're all in the business of feeling, right? I'm much more in the business of feeling, I think, than in looking pretty as such. And I know you definitely are all about the emotion of being outdoors. And so for me, I wanted to create in that Connecticut house a different entrance right from the get-go. I wanted to manipulate the feeling of coming onto that property. And what is that saying you have in the South? a man with a long driveway, is that what it's called? Anyway, being very impressed by somebody who, i.e. somebody who has a lot of money, I guess. That's what I heard. I hope it doesn't mean the other thing. I'm just thinking that. But anyway, sorry. So does it mean that? Sorry. But anyway, I wanted to manipulate the experience when you were coming in of like a driveway, like delay the whole experience, and you can plant orchards, and you can have paddock with horses and whatever crappy fantasy decorators have. And then it would have made the whole house sited better, and you weren't right at the edge of 11 acres. You would be more into it. So I think that it's the same with me when I look at a house. I'm always, and I came from a real estate background, I always want to get 150% out of anything I approach. So very frustrating for everybody who works with me, some of the clients as well, but you know, I want to get more. It's not enough to do a paint job. You know, I've got to do it so the house ends up being better than if you hadn't hired me. That's my egotistical approach. So some of it is turning around how the experience of the garden. So that's kind of my approach, is figuring out what's the most I can get out of the land and then twist it around. You know, the access from indoor to outdoor, very important to me everywhere. You know, the house we did together, it was all about the garden and not that much about the house, really.
Yeah.
You know, you shone. I was like 30 feet from stardom, backup singer in that project.
No, your part was lovely.
Pat, what do you see when you first arrive at a project? What do you?
I look at several things, including the architecture of the house, because I think the garden should sort of relate to that very closely. And you might want to hide, but you sort of suss it out. And then, you know, often we're working with interior designers and architects in a collaborative team, so kind of putting together our whole vision for the property.
And that's ideal, right?
Yeah.
Is everybody's working together from the beginning, right?
So the inside should sort of repeat itself outside. And
yes,
then,
inside should repeat itself outside.
And
is that going to be the next title of an article?
Is that the title of my book?
It might be. It might be. We're also working on Pat's new book as we do this. This is all. Yeah. You're all part of it.
And then in some properties, there are opportunities to, you know, there's areas around the house, obviously, but then some places where you can create a place further out to draw people out into the property. And that was the case in this project Peter and I did. That's right on the screen now. But there was...
this is it here, right? Yeah.
So that area on the left was completely reclaimed, let's call it, right?
So that was halfway down. There was a slope that was kind of oddly situated in the back garden, and we retained part of that and sunk this fire pit area down. So it was just slightly below the house, so it was its own space.
Yeah.
Saving $1 million, right? So just sinking it in 3 feet.
You had this beautiful vantage point into the canyons below. So
beautiful.
It was a midway point, and then we developed pathways through the hillside below, did an orchard out there. So we really developed the whole property. And previously, the previous owners just stuck around the house.
Yeah, but I see. So you kind of extended
the
use around.
I mean, because I would say, to interject, there was probably a third of the property was in a slope. And then, you know, we were both like, oh, don't you want like something to pull people to that location? Which I think you did beautifully, because there was all sorts of etc.
Yeah. And I think you both said to me that you feel like part of your job is to draw people outside, right? And so how do you do that? How do you, when you really get into, okay, we are going to make use of all of this property, what are some of the ways that you like to draw people outside?
I think you can give cues to, and a lot of what I do is developing different garden rooms around the property so that there's a cohesive nature to it all, but there's a sense that from here you can go to here, and there's something when you're in this garden that draws your eye to another place. So it's developing cues with trees or groupings of trees or a destination, a pergola, something like that.
Yeah. Peter, for you?
I mean, I come from an Englishy background. I'm half English, and I grew up partly in England. So to me, there's something that I always resonate. I was pulled every year by my mother without fail to Sissinghurst, which was very close to my baby school, whatever, 8 to 13-year school, which was a boarding school, and that was her great joy. It was coming to visit me, supposedly, but it was really to go and see Sissinghurst. And there's this architecture there where there's a very defined sense, as you say, rooms. So I think there's a lot to be said, and people, I would say one of the failings is people don't spend enough money creating exterior architecture. Don't you think? Walls are frighteningly expensive. Something so beautiful about a doorway that leads you mysteriously with a doorway and then a beautiful door maybe that's half crumbling that we found somewhere with our great skills. And, and fountains and pergolas. I mean, I went to this school called Stowe afterwards in England, which was called the most beautiful school in England, and it had gardens done by Capability Brown for the Duke of Buckingham, and literally there were all these, that's taking, you've been there, so you probably want to, that's taking garden architecture a bit to the other end. There were I think a dozen large-sized follies all over the grounds and lakes and the whole thing, and bridges. So there's this sense in me at times, but sometimes you need, right, a bit of a stonework of some kind, a fountain. God knows I've begged people to put a pedestal with some kind of urn or something as a focal point to put your eye. So.
That seems like a good way to talk about sort of the all-important subject of materials, which when I listen to Pat talk about materials, it's almost elevated to this regal position of the materials and the textures and all of that. Would you talk a little bit about that? Because we're really talking about, do you even call that hardscape, or is it just much bigger than that, right?
It's bigger than, it's hardscape and woodworking and this ironwork and it's all the elements that you bring that create the architecture of the garden. So really beautiful almost cabinetry making in some of the things that you design outside, and bringing in reclaimed doors and something with some texture and interest, and then using different textures on the ground plane really can create interest. I love gravel. And you can plant right into gravel and have a very organic garden, or you can be much more, bring all these materials to the table to create, it's just like a living room.
I was just thinking that,
There are different things that kind of make the personality of the space. And then you create, you want to create a ceiling for the space to make you feel kind of comfortable outside, and sort of what goes into that. Is it a steel pergola with vines, and how does that work with the other materials you're using? Yeah.
And Peter, you've talked a good bit about how, as an interior designer working outdoors, there is no ceiling. So you are designing in order to create some sort of enclosure or some structure for that. And there's a great example that I'll try to point out when I see it, and it's a potting shed that ran in Veranda a while ago, and it is just gorgeous. But so you're kind of seeking to create room elements, right? Or some
interior spaces that I guess I specialize in, and the exterior that has no lid, as you put it. I find it very difficult sometimes to imagine the whole cohesion, the three-dimensionality of outdoor spaces, because I don't think about trees and canopies in the same way as I do, cornices or ceiling things or chandeliers or whatever things to make up room. So your language is definitely different than mine and what I'm familiar with. But I think a lot of the same experiences from the indoor. Would you describe yourself as a transition space between full nature and full interior? That's kind of the thing. So I think that the landscape has to sort of, in my opinion, relate to what's around. There's nothing weirder than having a really, we went to that wonderful garden together in Holland, Hetlo, and it is not at all like the forest around, which they use as the Dutch royal hunting with like a gazillion fountains and the whole thing. that looked amazing. But I mean, that's not for most people, right?
Right. It was very royal.
Yeah, they still today have 30 full-time gardeners. So, I mean, just put it in reality. But we're kind of at the transition point of reality between, let's say, the landscape of here or the landscape of California or wherever it is, and create this sort of almost seamless, manipulated experience, right, of comforted nature.
Yeah.
But
Comforted nature, that's...
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I guess that's a term, but just
But I think so, because I need, like, I feel like when you were talking to me or something like that. So that really resonated with me, because I think maybe that's why I'm not moving outside, is because I don't see some sort of a tuck-in, you know.
I think that's really important. I mean, that's kind of what I try and work in when I'm working with somebody like Pat, who's a completely different type of expert. It's like the experiences that I feel as a human being, or I feel the clients feel, is like this being nestled in. I mean, I have a phobia of rattlesnakes. I'm going to put it out there. So for me, like, an outdoor garden's got to be somehow, I want to somehow hide in there like a mesh that creepy crawlies like that don't come into the
Or else you can't relax.
For
kind of,
comfort, you know, so I'm not shaking cushions every time I sit down. So, you know, they're just things that we fear when we're outdoors, some of us.
Yeah.
You're probably fearless outdoors, aren't you?
Fearless.
But there's this, you try and create these areas that are comforting, you know, fire pits, sounds, fountains, all these things that women do. Not just comfort, but this other subliminal feeling of, and then you want to just have it flow into nature in general.
Yeah. And you told me something that I didn't know when we were prepping for this discussion. You said that you're obsessed with trees. I did not know that. And that was, talk about the obsession with trees, and then Pat, I want to know also how that plays into your landscapes as well.
But so weird. Last night I arrived at the Hotel the Kimpton where I'm staying. Are you staying there as well?
No.
Okay, so staying at the Kimpton, the shades were down. It was kind of late. It was dark, so I just drew the curtains. And this morning I rolled up the curtains, and there was this canopy. I was on the 6th floor of these beautiful trees.
Oh my gosh, you might be right next. I'm on the 6th floor, overlooking all of
Well,
that.
I'm glad I didn't do anything to scream in the middle of the night, whatever. Anyway, but it's kind of a canopy level, and there is this brilliant, glorious green that's in front of the windows. Now, if they weren't there, I'd be looking at a certain distance, which I kind of wanted to go. But, you know, the trees just made it all wonderful, the experience. Did you open the shades?
Yeah, I did the same. That's why
Okay.
I did the same thing. Opened the shades, got in after dark, and all that.
And the other trees I don't really know, but the shape of the trees, the color of the trees, there's just something absolutely beyond magnificent. I mean, I'm going to say for any interior designers here, we delude ourselves if we think we're going to compete with Mother Nature in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, she wins every time. And then so anyway, the experience of the trees, I go to this kind of plant place in LA called Moon. Is it called Moon Nurseries or something? You probably think they're rubbish, but so the woman there said to me, "Oh yes, I tell people you have to plant at least one tree for every year you've lived." It's getting a bit difficult for me now, but you know, everywhere I go, I try and plant trees. You know, like I need to have a lemon tree everywhere, every shop, warehouse thing. It's important to me. Or you know, I want to have shade wherever I can. So I have a crappy warehouse that's now turning into the Park Avenue of warehouses. But it's literally, I think I planted 9 or 10 trees in this yard. So there's shade, people can have lunch. The trees sort of stop you looking beyond it in many ways, right?
Yeah, they definitely define the space.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing when you're walking in and you don't see enough of that? How are you approaching that?
She calls noon.
She what?
She calls noon. Moon.
No, I too geek out on trees and always depend on shade trees particularly in California where the sun is so bright.
So where's that?
Oh, that's Stinson Beach.
Oh my God.
And trying to, I originally was from the East Properties, and bringing trees in is one way to kind of get that started. And I just love, like, there's the presence of this huge coast live oak with this magnificent canopy and the shade that creates, or the California cypress, the big tree in the
beautiful.
back.
It's very sculptural.
Yeah, they're very sculptural, and they just define kind of the space around them. And my latest obsession is ginkgo groves, where you have ginkgo trees that are so close together, you're almost walking between columns, and creates this whole
beautiful.
Kind of, it's almost like being in a colonnade.
And
they in the fall turn brilliant yellow. So I definitely depend on trees a lot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what I've noticed in discussions about it is that a lot of times we take it for granted, you know, until you're in a space where they're not there and you're not even sure what's missing sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in North Florida, and we just had pines. Period. Done. Like, that's all. And so I almost looked at them as dangerous, you know, because anytime a storm's coming in, which is often in Florida, I was just thinking, well, this is how I'm going to die. And that's how I spent my entire childhood, you know.
What?
You know, my dad would just be like, here she goes with the trees again, you know, like with the, I've got the only daughter that's scared of wind, you know, but I think it was all of those towering pines around me all the time anyway. But I guess they weren't oaks. Those could have killed me a little. Anyway, that's taking a very dark turn. Let's talk about lighting.
But nothing is more beautiful than a wonderful oak tree, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, in California, we have these oaks that are live all year. I'm sure you do here as well. But it's coming from England, where oaks don't look as good in winter. But they look really magnificent in summer. We have these oaks that are like people.
Yeah.
I did this property in Ojai that the oaks, that's another turn the drive. The client was 100% wrong. But no, it's going to take too long. I was like, but it's going to take you an extra 2 minutes every day to drive through if we turn the driveway. But the magic of that, you're going to drive through these people, this tree family, colonnade, as you put it.
Tree family.
Like, I would rip out the old driveway and put a new one in a hot second there.
Will you remind us what is, you mentioned that you have a real estate background, and there's kind of a saying with realtors.
Oh, yes.
Could you tell everyone?
But when I first moved to LA, I moved to LA for love. And one of the people close to my lover's parents was a very well-known realtor in Beverly Hills, Linda May. She said, honey, you just have to remember one thing in LA. And I said, what's that? And she said, people want to drive up to their net worth. And I was like, okay. So maybe that stuck with me. And what is more bling than spending an extra 3, 4, 5 minutes driving through land to get to the house? And hello.
Yeah.
I went to Stowe, where the Duke of Buckingham went bankrupt trying to buy the land from Stowe, 120 miles from London, all the way to Buckingham Palace in London that he owned, so he wouldn't have to drive on anyone else's land. So
has anyone been to Ballyfin in Ireland, that historic estate? When they redid that, the first thing they did was they changed the drive to make it meander more, and so it would become more of a discovery once you kind of come around a stand of trees to find this magnificent estate, rather than just like ramming right up into it, you know. Yeah, so I think, so they would have taken your advice for sure.
Definitely.
Yes.
And this house, actually, the one that's on the screen now, so this is one of the houses I wanted to move, and it was in the middle of this double lot, and one half of the house was all just scrubby and unused, basically. And I was like, and you came in to the left of that new double-story house that felt like a bunker. And on the other side of the house, it was a little lumpy. And I said, we've got to change the entrance. We have to move the entrance to the other side so that we delay. And you're walking through a grove, a little bit of pine trees, a little bit up and down. And then you almost approach the house almost at the second level and then walk down again. It changed the experience totally. I mean, I feel like I earned my fee just on that. Because suddenly you weren't tripping on a swimming pool, tripping on with this big house looming above by a very famous architect in Horace Gifford in the Pines, but the house was more celebrated. It got slowly undressed as you approach.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, I come from the stripper pole kind of approach to design, where you keep on like attracting people by metaphoric stripper poles or whatever. And that was one of them, just slowly, what's going on here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of the romance.
Have you ever won any of those battles?
Oh, she's much more persuasive.
I've done pretty well with this. Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about, because I know that this is something that when we talked about lighting, it was very animated because, there's the up lighting and down lighting and no lighting and all of that. So if I'm trying to figure out the right question with what do people get wrong, I want to say, can you talk about the importance of lighting? What is the worst thing that you can do?
Well, you need lighting to make your way around the garden safely at night, and it also can serve to highlight special things in the garden. But too much lighting is my worst.
Yeah,
light.
and what is too much lighting? Is that the way it's shining down? Is it just literally the volume of lighting that they have?
It's both volume and how it's lit. I like to light from trees, so it feels like moonlight. And even though it's very subtle, and I know.
So not uplighting as much.
Not so much uplighting, or well lighting is a little more diffused. But it's achieving more of a subtle moonlight effect is what we go for.
What a romantic way to put it. When I first heard you say it once, I was just like, yes.
Yes,
got a little
right.
Moonlight outside. It's dreamy.
Yeah. Do you feel the same about? I know that you have a lot of opinions on lighting in general. And so
Opinions. I think that a very little amount of lighting goes a very long way outside. And there's nothing, those LED lights outside people's front doors that look like you're approaching a gas station. I'm of the thing that you could have a party in a 7-Eleven if you wanted, if you just did candlelight. So the closest you can get to either moonlight or candlelight to me is the approach.
Yeah.
Really soft, really almost imperceptible. We all trip like hell outside. And I agree with you, highlighting features and giving a garden depth and length by lighting, even if you light sort of the third or fourth layer out, can be really pretty. But the minute you put in something where you see a bare light bulb, to me is like a horror. It's like a shriek. What the hell is that going on? And I just think just less is more. Whatever was in a house, if you cut it by 90%, it's probably going to be enough.
Okay.
There's a spec house around the corner from me, a really ravishing little spec house. They put in dozens of lanterns outside on all the walls, and they're so bright. Every time I walk my dog, I think that's just dreadful.
Yeah, that
Crime,
can really ruin things.
And I think just very little is good.
I would say I've learned a lot over the years from Peter directly about lighting. So anytime he talks about this topic, always listen. In fact, I remember talking about it on the stage in our first panel here as well, and that was interior lighting. But he's so great at that and perceiving it, and we talk about it even. Didn't you? You told the mayor of Maastricht about his lighting too.
Oh my God!
Yes.
We were together.
We did, and it was great. He just noticed it right away. He said, "I love this room. This is great." It was like his office.
Well, I did pat with his in this. Was it 16th or 17th century building?
Yeah.
Most famous architect
of
antique.
Beautiful.
With his huge chain dangling, and these rooms were so beautiful with tapestries that had been made for the entire rooms. Another room was entirely done in stamped velvet, period. No, stamped leather panels, sorry. I mean, but these chandeliers had about 200 bright LED bulbs, and I just couldn't even stand being in the room. I don't know if it's my approaching cataract or something, but it just becomes hazy. Anyway, so suddenly got into it. He said, I'll show you other rooms? I said, yeah, please. There's a whole huddle of us. Have you found it, Katri? You know, would you like some unsolicited, free decorating advice? And he said, well, yeah. You've got to get rid of the light bulbs. I mean, you literally have to get your secretary on Monday to go on Amazon and buy a little chandelier lampshade for every one of these bulbs, because you're going to damage your eyes. And the thing said, oh, yes, yeah. And I said, yes, you are. And I said, but there's a dimmer here. And he went to the dimmer and tried to fiddle with the dimmer, which of course didn't work. The LED bulbs. And I said, LED bulbs, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. So probably next time we go, there will be little
I think there will. Yeah,
lights.
next time we go. Next time we happen to be.
If we ever get asked again after that, I think it was just like...
It was very well received. It was very well received. Peter came over, he said, I told him to redo his lighting. Missed a conversation there.
Well, as well, we had the dinner in this wonderful double-story hall.
Yes.
It was all candle-lit. And very subtle lighting, so that was great.
It was beautiful, yeah. So I think a lot more about lighting now that I've known Peter. Now, furnishing. Okay, there's a couple things. I'm looking at the clock here, so...
It's like QVC.
I know. And I want to get to both tile work and rugs and reclaimed materials all in the same thing. Talking about the power of it just bringing that age into the garden. And once you said that, I went back and looked at all of this work that you've done, and I was like, I see it. That was what, I didn't know what I was looking at that was making such an impact.
Yeah, I love to do a garden that feels like it's always been there. Mm-hmm. So bringing in the reclaimed materials, and there's some wonderful sources of reclaimed stone, and even reclaimed brick. But stone, I go nuts over the options. And then, we'll find an antique iron gate and include that in the design, and then we'll do riffs of it in different parts of the garden, really an antique. Just finding something to build off of that's truly an antique.
Yeah.
And fountains, fountain vessels, and containers, but all those things do go so far to make a very natural garden that
know the value of mixing in the antiques and all of that, and it's the same sort of principle, maybe even more so with that sort of what you need in materials to balance out the age of the tree, or to reflect the age of the trees and all of that,
And I've even used them in more modern gardens where there's just it's a softening of some of the harder elements of the modernity.
Yeah. Peter, when it comes to furnishings, you have an outdoor furniture line. What were you looking for in the market in terms of, and what do you think is important when it comes to how you're furnishing the rooms in your garden, or the dining rooms? You say that in California, it's more of a default to dine outside. So you're really using these rooms. What do you look for in outdoor furniture?
Well, definitely comfort, and definitely durability. Most of what I do for outdoors is rush, and it often includes, because it's part of my narrative, what I love, sort of rush material. I like it very much. A lot of people prefer it looking spanking new, so I provide lovely covers for it and the whole thing. But on the right picture, you can see that was kind of just a standard American rocking chair that for a client I custom made in teak, and I've done a few projects where I've done this, where we've taken very traditional models. I did a house in Aspen, the same, where everything I bought at Brimfield was these old, rickety, broken down chairs that looked like they came from Cracker Barrel in the 1940s, and reproduced them at great expense in teak, and they still look fantastic.
Yeah.
And they're comfortable, and they give this timelessness that Pat was just referring to, and makes the whole vibe continue, but in teak. Sometimes inside, so you need quite heavy outdoor furniture at the beach or at the, in the mountains. So it's quite important. I mean, there's nothing that gives me more of a nightmare than putting furniture out there somewhere and then these huge glass walls, and you think, God, if one of my chairs.
Right.
A quick aside: when Michael Smith bought some of my outdoor furniture, another LA designer you probably heard of, and he said, "Oh, did I tell you about your teak?" I said, "No." He said, "I love it. We use it all the time. But we're doing Elaine Wynn's We were doing Elaine Wynn's penthouse, so only on about the 10th floor. And we got there and I said, we're missing a chair and I can't see where the hell the chair went. We couldn't figure out. And we looked over the parapet and there was the chair on the terrace below. And I said, what? She said, and it was Janice, what's she called? Janice Film from Janice AC. I can't remember what.
Yeah.
That was her penthouse before. She said, could you imagine she was shuffling out in her slides in the morning, got killed by one of your chairs, what that would have done for your outdoor collection. I think you made the whole story up. The £50 chair flew off.
Oh my God.
Janice Feldman's terrace on the floor below, but the horror of it. So, practicality does come into the picture.
Yeah.
But in all a lot of my outdoor fabrics, it's the same. There's a lot of touch to them. People want feel. People are wearing shorts. People are wearing nothing. People are wearing just.
You've partnered with Sunbrella. You've worked with Sunbrella for years.
Worked for many years. They're a fantastic mill that does custom, runs for designers like us. Kind of their very couture thing that they like to do, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was when they showed me originally the yarns were in such great colors that I said, this is the answer, a light bulb window. I'm not going to do an indoor woven collection because it's so hard to do that. Everyone was doing beautiful indoor wovens. I'm just going to put all my assets into doing outdoor. And they're, what we euphemistically call indoor-outdoor because everyone likes to use them indoors.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it so often now, because it's so refined. It's come such a long way. And I think, but I think, studying the rooms, you can just see that level. I keep thinking of the dining room or the living room, the outdoor living room that you both worked on, that you said those clients really like to entertain, the one in our March-April issue, which I'm sorry we don't have here, but we had a new issue to come out with, so that's why that's
You can go back to your library.
Yes, go back to your library for the March-April issue. But so anyway, there was that level of refinement and just wanting to be there, and I think there was, I kind of go by what you said about, the comfort and do I want to be in that space right there? And if it looks very harsh or something like that, you just, no thanks, I'll stay in the AC or something. Right.
I'll go lie in bed.
Yes.
Most people, I think.
Yes. Okay. So of course I only got to half of my questions, but on the before we get to your questions, so be thinking of any questions that you have for Pat or Peter. Going back to your library of Veranda issues, I did want to say, I think most of you know this, but if you don't, Veranda was born here in Atlanta, the vision of Lisa Newsome, and we still follow so many of her founding principles today. I will never forget, I said, to what do you credit this loyal following? And I mean, right from the beginning when she pictures that you can study, don't try to cram too many on a page just to get more in. And so the very best way to, be part of this community and to support print is we have our Design Society, which is basically our subscription, but blown out into this entire membership program that we're having field trips. We just went to Lotus Land in LA and met with 60 Design Society members. But you get the magazine, you get our book, and you get access to these trips and all of these guides. Peter has done a guide with us where it's to choosing rugs. And so anyway, it's just it's kind of an evolution of, and this is how, you have all of these print magazines for your libraries. Just go to veranda.com and hit subscribe in the corner. And we just want to make sure it's basically bringing the pages to life. And so we'll see more of you as well at different events all over the country. So I wanted to mention that as well because it has really become a central part of how we're getting to know everybody. So with that, I wanted to open it up to any questions. And before I do that, Katie has a microphone, so if you do have a question, she'll come around and bring it to you. Right here. Yep.
I bet it's for you, Pat.
I'm from California and a recent transplant to Atlanta, so this conversation is wonderful. I'm curious how you consider the change in seasons and how that impacts the change in landscape, and as you're designing these outdoor spaces, particularly with plantings and so on, to make sure that those spaces continue to draw people outside, even in the dead of winter or when the visuals of it are changing across the year.
Well, California really does have seasons, it's a very subtle change from season to season, but there are deciduous trees that lose leaves, and so you do have to plan for what the garden's going to be like in winter, and also if you're usually I'm designing gardens in a way that gives them a year-round structure that carries them through the winter. So that everything doesn't collapse at once. And I think that's something I sort of learned from growing up in the East Coast, where everything really did collapse at once. And so the planning that way keeps the garden looking great all year round. And also just in terms of planning for comfort in the garden, we heat our outdoor pergolas and, sometimes have covered outdoor spaces, so you really can. LA can get quite chilly at night, so
Yeah.
I don't go out unless there's a place that's warm to sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions? All good?
Thank you. I was wondering if, with all of the indoor-outdoor living in California, if you have any rules or guidelines on when people can use noisy machinery.
Do you know?
Oh, you're giving me a bone. There's supposed to be rules. There was one about not using gasoline blowers, but the electric ones are sort of quite noisy too. But I don't think we do really, actually. It's funny, I had a client who was buying a house in the sticks in Southampton, and they were looking first in the village of Southampton because they wanted to totter down to the village and get a coffee in the morning and everything. They said they rented first. They said the noise was intolerable Monday through Friday because people were clipping hedges and mowing lawns and all that maintenance for all that perfectly manicured Southampton landscaping. It was intolerable all day long. So you're right about the thing. Now, do they? Do you work anywhere they tell you not to make noises, landscaping
No one
noises?
listens if they do.
Yeah, of course.
It's a good question, too. Yeah. It's all because it goes to the sensory value of being outside, right?
Oh, nothing worse. Or when there's a generator, the pool equipment. Oh, God, the pool equipment next door could drive you nuts, couldn't it?
Other questions? Oh, right here, up here.
Okay, this is for Pat. I just have a question. As someone who's aesthetic and you plant your new garden and you want it to be like, I guess I planted my garden as you're waiting for your vines to climb, or, it just feels so landscapey as I'm waiting for things to grow. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about containers or ways you soften your garden. Your alley of ginkgo trees will take 20 years to mature.
Good question, yeah.
Good question.
Start young.
Yeah, right. Sometimes when I'm planting, I will think about things that grow fast and include some of those so that I know that there's something that's going to take off in the first year. And that'll, Boston ivy, where we are, just explodes right away. Sycamore trees, the smaller you plant them, the faster they grow. In fact, I had a sycamore tree at that old house of mine, and I planted two 48-inch boxes. And then I thought, I think I would like one over here, and I planted two 15 gallons just for the heck of it. And they outstripped the 48-inch box. And what's going to carry it through? So again, going back to that winter-summer dichotomy, we'll try and plant some real structure for the garden while everything else is coming in. So
Yeah.
those are the tricks. But patience is another.
Patience.
What happened?
Yep. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for coming. It's so good to see you, and I know that I'll see you at the reception afterwards. And Pat, Peter, I want to thank you so much for this. This has been so wonderful. And again, I've learned so much. So thank you for coming from California.
Well, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So join us now in Suite 323 with Cola Collection and Sunbrella, and we'll do a book signing with Peter. Thank you so much, Pat, as well.
See you.